Welcome to our second study of consciousness. Today we're going to talk about the origin of consciousness. This is a big question. Niels Bohr, one of the fathers of modern physics, he has basically concluded that to understand consciousness, we need a new science. Chemistry, math, physics, all the modern sciences are not able to actually explain the origin and the cause of consciousness. So from that point, we begin in the mid to late 20th century with the study of consciousness within science. And that movement has been growing, and we have more and more technology and more tools within science to attempt to study consciousness. And we're going to get into some of those efforts that have been taking place and try to assess the validity and the findings of those different types of studies. So, does consciousness have an origin? Does it have a material origin? Does it have a spiritual origin or something else? So these are the different considerations, these are the different perspectives, points of view, depending on who you speak to and which approach you take to trying to understand consciousness. So the origins of consciousness, we cannot find any material cause at this point for consciousness arising as a combination of chemicals or as a combination of material elements. So that's the basic standing at this point for study of consciousness within science. On the spiritual side, there are different understandings of consciousness, of course, that it has a spiritual origin and that it's actually the symptom of the presence of the soul within a given body. So consciousness itself is the symptom of the soul. That's the spiritual perspective, more or less. Different religions have different takes on that, but for the most part, consciousness is a spiritual phenomenon that is intrinsic to the soul. So then we start analyzing, well, what's the difference between a living body and a dead body? So we say the living body has consciousness and the dead body is unconscious, lacking consciousness. So what changes from the moment of death, from just prior to the moment of death, to the moment of death, and then just after the moment of death, what's causing the change of consciousness? Previously, it was a conscious being, may have been talking and, moving around, and then at the time of death, something happens, and then just after that, we see there's no symptoms of consciousness, that all the symptoms of consciousness have gone. And from a spiritual perspective, of course, they would explain that different religious, spiritual traditions of knowledge would explain that the soul, the consciousness within that body, has left the body, and that the body itself was never actually conscious. Just as your car, your automobile is not conscious, but when you're in it, it displays symptoms of consciousness. It may display if you look at it superficially, you may see the car is moving in an intelligent direction and it's stopping at stoplights, but that's because of that you're inside the automobile, right? So similarly, the body is a vehicle. This is explained in various religious traditions. that the body is a vehicle and that the conscious soul is the driver of that vehicle. So just like when you step out of your car and it sits lifelessly, turned off and unconscious, when the soul leaves the body at the time of death, similarly the body becomes or displays a lack of consciousness. Although at no point was the body ever conscious, per se, the material elements of the body, but rather the soul that was inhabiting the body is the seat of consciousness. So these are some of the different ideas. We're going to, in future studies, we're going to get into specifics, studies and scientific studies and even religious teachings and passages from different scriptures, and we're going to analyze those and compare and contrast them and try to get a good view from as many perspectives as possible so that we can enhance our understanding of human consciousness and consciousness in general. So thanks for joining us for this study, and join us on the next one by subscribing to this channel and liking this video. That'll help us. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free. The comment section is always open and we'll be happy to respond to you. See you on the next one. Thank you.